You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. The Five Rings Podcast, your weekly amateur sports and Olympic sports show with Duane, Rollins, and Kevin Laramee. And now, without further ado, here's Duane Rollins.
Kind of missed that old opening, Kevin.
Yeah, I thought I'd surprise you. I didn't notice, Duane, that we're back to the old uh, sound or coloring of the show. So the old color. So here you go, Duane, just for you, the old track and field video game.
There you go. I appreciate that. It always pumps me up to get going. This is our Rio review show. So what we're going to do today is we are going to give gold, silver, bronze, and wood medals for Canada, because we're Canadian, and for the world. And Kevin and I decided that it was just a little too simple to put Phelps and Bolt into the conversation. Clearly they are gold medalists both, so we are going to have a conversation about where they stand in terms of who's the greatest Olympian is, who's better. I don't know. We're just going to have a debate about that, a conversation about that.
First of all, Duane, have you recovered from Rio yet? I think I'm just starting to recover. I think the last few days I've actually finally got the energy that I had before Rio started.
Yeah, I think that if there was Olympic sports on my TV today, I might watch it. So I don't know if I would have 2 days ago, but I think I'm back at it. That's about how long it takes. It was a lot. The summer games are very big. When you're trying to watch them like we were, it was a different experience because I was trying to absorb it all. And, there were times at the end, I'm not going to lie, that it became a little overwhelming, but nonetheless, I think we got through it, and I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I said at in the final episode we did live that games kind of ended for me when Canada won the bronze medal in women's soccer, because I followed that team very closely, and it was kind of hard in the final week. And I also felt a little guilty by the TV and all the devices in my house for 2 weeks too.
Yeah, I understand that. That way you get a new one after, just make sure that you can start over.
It's all fine. But we're back, and we took a little time to do this because we wanted to do it when we felt refreshed and ready to go, and we had time to reflect upon things. Kevin, how are you doing? Are you ready to do this?
I am, actually. It took me last week. I could not bear looking at my notes from the Olympics. I cannot even think about the Five Rings, about Rio, anything surrounding Brazil. Overdose over the last 2 years with the World Cup and the Rio. So now it's over. So we're moving to an Asian overdose over the next few years.
Exactly. There's going to be a lot of that for sure. Pyeongchang, not too far away, really, within the grand scheme of things. Less time to it than it was to Rio after Sochi ended. So, here away we go, and we'll move forward as we always do. But let's start by looking back. As I said off the top, we're going to have a conversation about Phelps v. Bolt. I think this is a conversation lots of people are having around the world. It is an intriguing one, and it is hard to kind of separate the two because Phelps obviously has a lot of medals.
Yeah,
he's a swimmer.
Here's my thinking, Duane. If there was 50-meter races, 150-meter races, 250-meter races, 200 relays, Bolt would have more medals.
Yeah, well, I think the other part of that too is if there were like skipping races, and it's kind of there's the swimming lends itself to more medals, and I said that actually during the games that if you want to look at medal counts, you kind of have to factor in swimming, and like if you're looking at who the most powerful nations are, you have to look at that. Some of these sports just have so many medals, and one person can win so many of them that it's not really an apples to apples situation, which is why the medal count really is kind of useless sometimes. Look, I think we're both in agreement. I can judge by what you're saying that I believe Bolt is the greatest Olympian, certainly of the last 25 years or so. I think that Jesse Owens and Carl Lewis are the only two that I could put in that conversation along with him. But as of late, just his complete dominance, his bigger than life persona makes him, to me, the man. But I do want to spend some time on Phelps as well, because obviously the amount of winning he did is this Olympics. He was most impressive to me this Olympics than all the others because
Yeah.
he's so old for a swimmer, and to come back and
And the
et cetera, et
dominance was
cetera.
different in a way. It wasn't by 28th length of a human body. It was by so short that it was literally sheer will that propelled him to be first at the wall a lot of times, and determination. Just remember that butterfly event against the South African Leclos, who has wrote a book on how to beat Michael Phelps, putting so much pressure on that one event, and he did not even finish on the podium because that pressure got to him. Phelps won easily. And I think that motivation, that technical marginal games, we call them in swimming or other sports, where millimeters, milliseconds are the difference between gold and not even on the podium. We've seen Phelps get those small margin of victories, but still get those victories this time around.
Yeah, it was his mentality this time that pushed him through, his experience, his ability to race, to get out there in the day and perform when it mattered most. And in the past, his skill, his just ability kind of carried him. He could have probably showed up hungover, for God's sakes, in some cases, and won those games or won those medals back in Beijing. So certainly I think that it was kind of more impressive to me anyway for him to come back. And obviously we all know the story of how he fell into some trouble after 2012 and had some DUIs and had to sort of recover and went back to swimming and was able to turn his life around that way. And that's part of the narrative too. That said, as I said, Kevin, is just Phelps doesn't have, maybe Americans would disagree with me on this, but the rest of the world, I think that Bolt just is on a different plane in terms of his persona, his presence,
Well,
who he is.
I think it just goes to the fact that swimming is not as popular than the sprint itself. I consider the sprint almost outside of track and field because those 10 seconds are the most watched 10 seconds every 4 years. Is it the same for swimming? To a level, but not to the same degree as the 100-meter sprint of the gold medal. Outside of the 4 years, it would be different. Swimming might be more popular in schools in NCAA. The swimming teams are big. This is different. But on this stage, even though Michael Phelps is huge, the fact that it's the sprint, the king, best event in the Olympic, by according to people in ratings, that's why there's a lot more people watching those 10 seconds. Well, it's not even 10 seconds anymore than anything else.
No, well, it's the original Olympic event, right? Like, I mean, it's the essence, the very basic essence of sport. Who gets there first wins. It's just so simple that it's brilliant, right? And for him to do it 3 Olympics in a row is something that I think we're all lucky to have seen it. So where does he rank all time? And as I said earlier on, Lewis wasn't very. Have to put him in that conversation because he also did the long jump, which I don't think we'll ever see again. A sprinter that also does the long jump. That was pretty common back in the day, but Carl Lewis won the four gold medals, lots of medals there, defended his championship. He absolutely is in that conversation. Jesse Owens, I think, because of what he did in Berlin and the fact that back then you really could only do it for one Olympics because they couldn't afford to do it much longer, sort of limits his medal count, but certainly in terms of impact on the Olympic movement, he is there as well. But I actually am leaning more and more towards saying that Bolt is, in fact, number one. He is, in fact, the greatest Olympian that has ever participated in the Olympic Games.
Because of the fact that he did this over 8 years. And yes, you could say 12 for the lead up to Beijing, but in Olympic terms, those 8 years, so the Beijing, then you have London, then Rio. It's quite impressive that he shows up every 4 years at that competition, disregarding what happened in those 4 years. There was injuries, there was setback. He was beaten, lost a world championship by Johan Blake just before London, but it doesn't matter. It's about the Olympics. It's about that stage. And when those bright lights were on Bolt, nobody has ever beaten him, literally. So we'll see what happens in London 2017, the world championship, and maybe his last race ever, until he maybe decides to play football or something. We'll see. But it's going to be interesting if anybody beats him next year. And if not, he might finish, quote unquote, undefeated.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that he won't continue on past London. I mean, he says he won't, so we'll take his word for it. But he's such a competitor, and he still is on the top, right? And as long as I think he feels he can still win, wouldn't be surprised if he continues. But it is a lot to ask for him to go for 4. That's a bit absurd, and he has said that he's not going to do that. But certainly that would absolutely end the conversation. Full stop, right? He would be the greatest ever if he were to do that. But we look forward to London next year. And as I said, Phelps, I actually think there's more of a chance that he might come back. It wouldn't shock me at all if he did that, because he is kind of a freak of nature. And, why not? I think that it's interesting to see that there's older and older swimmers sticking around now. And that's partly to do with the fact there's more money in the sport. They can make it as a career. So it might be interesting. There might be more swimmers that go up towards their 30s, into their 30s, even in the days ahead. And Phelps certainly is the pathfinder there, the one who has led the way.
Yeah, exactly. He changed what being a swimmer is. So that's in itself another aspect it's going to be in Phelps' legacy, is not just the gold medals and the silverware that he won all over the years, because it's not just gold medals. He won other medals too. The medal count itself is quite impressive, but it's the fact that he changed what being a swimmer is and what the career aspect, and the fact that he's able to amount of money that he can live with for the rest of his life. That in itself is a game changer in this world. Hopefully there's somebody that can continue to carry this, because you don't want it to go back to where it used to be. But no, it's impressive. It reminds me of what Tiger Woods did for golf, and those impressive one-off athletes can literally revolutionize how we see this sport.
Fair enough. All right, so we're of agreement then that Phelps and Bolt are getting our super duper platinum medals then, and we move on and give our gold, silver, bronze, wood for Canada and the world now.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll do just that.
You are listening to Five Rings Daily on SBN Radio. Your daily Olympic fix for all you Olympic freaks out there. SportsPodcastingNetwork.com. Join us on Twitter at Five Rings Podcast and at SportsPodNet.
All right, let's start with Canada, Kevin. And as always, we start with the bad so we can end with the good. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I can start, and it's Milos Raonic is getting my wood medal for Canada for the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Why? Because Djokovic lost early, Nadal lost early. He would have had a shot to maybe make it into the finals against an Andy Murray, and who knows what would have happened on that day in Rio. Is an opportunity missed for Milos Raonic. We've seen what an Olympic gold medal can do for your career. Let's go back to 2012 before Andy Murray won that tournament. He didn't have the same accolades and the amount of Grand Slam wins that he did after. That win on Wimbledon grass in 2012 changed Andy Murray as a competitor, as a tennis player, and made him realize his dreams of winning Grand Slams, which he did the year after. For Milos Raonic, would have been maybe his first of big tournaments, and would maybe brought his confidence up to that level needed for him to be included in the top 4, top 2 conversation. So that, for me, Milos Raonic for Canada, an opportunity missed at Rio in the tennis tournament.
Yeah, well, and the funny thing about it is that we didn't hear a lot about Zika during the actual Olympics either, did we?
No mosquitoes were seen, literally. We had Arash Madani and a lot of other journalists and people in Rio, like golf course. I think it was Delight, the Canadian, said that he didn't see one mosquito in the 4 rounds. So that's just saying something.
Yeah, well, it's winter down there. I think we kind of all forgot that until it started at any rate.
Yeah, literally.
Certainly, Milos, look, who's one of my favorite athletes in the world, as I said during the Olympics. So I'm ambivalent about this, but at the same time, I agree with you. I think he should have been there, and I think it would have been beneficial to what he was trying to accomplish. He's at the U.S. Open now. He won.
You could say, well, Jeannie Bouchard went and she lost. Well, she lost because she's not the same player she used to be. It has nothing to do with Rio. She would have lost anyways. She lost. established himself in that top conversation, which Nishikori did in Rio, and Milos should have been there.
Yeah, and it's a funny game. Tennis. 4 years from now, Milos, he probably still will be near the top. You hope he would be, but you never know. So it might be an opportunity lost, and certainly that is disappointing that he wasn't there. And not just because he's Canadian and you want more medals and blah blah blah, but it's just for his career. I think that it would have been nice to do. And like I said, there were no mosquitoes there. The whole Zika thing was, I don't want to say overblown.
It's more dangerous in Miami, people.
Yeah, look, I think that there were problems in Brazil, but nonetheless, a lot of the lead up stuff that we talked about, as we predicted, didn't really play out the exact same way people thought it might. So I'm kind of sad that he contributed to that narrative leading up to the games. And, he's got to do well in New York right now, right?
Well, that's what I predicted. He has to win New York. Otherwise, the decision not to go to Brazil, I think, will haunt him for a little while.
All right, let's move to my wood. I am giving my wood medal collectively to the flatwater racing team for Canada, the rowers, the kayakers, the canoers. I'm not trying to bash the athletes here, but this is a program, both of those programs, that has in the past been one of the more dominating, one of the more entertaining, one of the more engaging aspects of any Olympic Games. And it just never really got going in this Olympics. It was always frustration with, we'd hear about this crew that was, oh, this is a great crew, and then they'd finish last in their preliminary round, right? And it was disappointing from a viewership perspective. It really made the mornings kind of drag sometimes because there wasn't a Canadian story going on. And I mean, that's not the end. I'll be selfish with that, but
no. But does it go back to the decision of them not fielding an 8 and trying to focus on the individual, and maybe that team aspect of the whole never really materialized, and you didn't get the result that we're used to? And back then we had the 8 that would maybe get a surprise result that would galvanize all the troops. So I don't know if that decision by Rowing Canada to not field an 8 or anything like this had ramification to all the athletes and the mood and everything in the lead up to the games. It's interesting because the decision is not single-handedly just one athlete, is as a whole. So you have to look at this problem as a whole and what did happen in Rowing Canada in the months prior to Rio.
Yeah, and I think that there'll be some questions asked in that program in the days ahead. And unfortunately, the way On the Podium funding works is that they may not have as much money in the next cycle. So it's an uphill battle to try and get back to where they once were. As I said, this was a once dominant program. Famously, they won something like 2 gold medals in 10 minutes once in Barcelona, right? Like, this is high watermark moments for Canada. And obviously every program goes through its ups and downs and it can get back. It reminded me of swimming in Athens when they weren't even making finals. And then of course we saw the swimmers make a revitalization this year. So you can get back, but it was disappointing at times.
Let's not forget, after Athens, Pierre Lafontaine came back to Swimming Canada and he laid the groundwork to what we've seen today. Yeah, he's moved on since then, but he came back, fixed the ship, and left before the ship was able to get full speed. But no, a lot of hard work was the turnaround in 8 years as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw the results of that. All right, let's move to the positive stuff, Kevin, and we'll get your bronze medal.
I have a tie-up for bronze, and I have one for gold as well. You can guess which my 2 golds are. But my 2 bronze medal are 2 athletes that just finished at a hair's length to the podium. One actually got into the podium momentarily before getting kicked out again. Yes, I'm talking about friend of the show, Evan Dunphy, and Melissa Bishop, who finished 4th in the 800 meters because of, well, we all talked about that hyperandrogenism aspect of this sport in the women track and field 800-meter distance. The 3 athletes that won have a different set of time achievable for them than Bishop. And Melissa Bishop was literally the best of the rest. Finished 4th, but for us, she's first in our hearts. Melissa Bishop, great result for her. Evan Dunphy, 4th in the 50-kilometer race walk. Great performance, tough performance. Literally gave everything he had on the road. And it was a great performance that literally caught the attention of a nation. And never before have we seen Canada as a whole be transfixed by a race walk competition at the Olympics. And it was just magical. Those few hours that day were so fun to watch.
Well, yeah, Melissa Bishop. I also, and we said this at the time. I liked the way that she handled it too. That she was diplomatic about it. She wasn't a sore loser. She stood up and she was proud of her run, and I kind of like that. But I actually have my bronze medal is Evan as well because of just the way that he handled himself and the fact that storyline proved that you don't always have to medal to have a performance at the Olympics that resonates. And certainly his fourth place finish, which for a lot of people watching would have came completely out of the blue, less so for us. But nonetheless, I think both of us would be lying if we thought that he was going to contend for a medal heading into that.
He could achieve a top 10 if he had a good day, and that's on his own words last year. But the fact that he was able to get that close to the podium with his best time ever, that's his personal best. He did everything right leading up to Rio to be able to peak at the right time. So as much as Melissa Bishop did a personal best as well for fourth place, Evan Dunphy, just for that, needs to be commended.
And it was a very dramatic thing, and in his statement after how he accepted the result, there's a picture of him posing with the Japanese athlete that got the bronze at the closing ceremony. I mean, he's obviously we like the guy. He's a good guy, and he's a guy that we've talked to a few times, and is just a stand-up person who's absolutely sincere. What you see is what you get, right? Like he's a stand-up guy, like I said, and I was happy for him to get his moment, and it'll be 4 more years probably before we hear a lot about Evan Dunphy, but nonetheless, he probably has put himself in contention now and will be one of the people that we're talking about as a potential medal threat heading into Tokyo, and that'll be a different type of pressure for him to handle moving forward, but I think he seems like a guy that can handle that, Kevin.
Yes, so Evan Dunphy and Melissa Bishop are both our bronze medal for the recap of Rio 2016.
All right, let's move to your silver, Kevin.
Erica Wiebe, minus 75 kilogram wrestling women. She won gold for Canada with a great performance. She was able to get the point when it mattered, hold off until the end, get that gold medal win. It has been a long time since Canada had a medal at wrestling, and until that, it was the last chance Canada had to get a medal this year. This time around in the wrestling competition, all other possibilities failed before her. Canada does have a very good history with the likes of Danielle Gali winning in Sydney, gold medal. We have that history with Martine Dugrenier as well on the women's side. This time around, Erica Wiebe carried that torch and got that gold medal. And the images of her carrying her coach on the mat after that wrestling match has been seen around the world. It was a great moment. And for me, it's my silver medal for Canada.
Funny enough,
I told you we'd had the same one. Like before we recorded, like Duane, we're gonna have the same ones.
Yeah, it's Weeb, by the way. You're thinking of Extra Time Radio.
Yes, exactly. Andrew Weeb, but Erica Wiebe.
Yeah, it's spelled the same way. So Weeb. At any rate, yeah, she. What I liked about that one was I wouldn't say it's out of the blue because she was actually considered to be a medal contender heading into it, and she was a solid performer. But to win a gold, I don't think necessarily when we woke up that day we were thinking that she would win the gold medal.
And Duane, let's not forget in the wrestling. Sorry to interrupt, but in the wrestling or judo, taekwondo, those sports, to go win a gold medal, possible. One mistake, you lose the match. One mistake, you stall 1 second going against you. And at that level of wrestling, it's not necessarily who can does something and how you prevent the other one. Both seem static, but the amount of energy exchange between the two is mind-boggling. And once you get that point against you, it's hard to turn away from that. So in those competitions, just to get to the gold medal match, everything has to come your way. Yeah,
and it builds over the course of the day. Increasingly more excited about her progress through the day. So it's just kind of a fun narrative, and it was one of the I always talk about the surprise bronze. I don't know if we really had a surprise bronze this Olympics, but we did certainly have a surprise gold in this particular case.
Well,
and
all the medals of our future gold, I guess, going to be.
It was fun, and I enjoyed that a great deal. And she's a very dynamic personality that had her moment, and it was just a good story. And it was near the end of the games too, sort of revitalized us a little bit, and a very enjoyable moment. All right, let's move to your gold, Kevin.
All right.
Or golds, I should say.
All right, so I'm going to take a guess of which one of the two I think you have, and I'm going to go with I do have an ex aequo, so you guess who the other one is. Penny Oleksiak, 4 gold medal in her first Olympic. Her adventure started at the National Swimming Trials a few months ago. We played the clip before, where she was not even expected to qualify to Rio to that extent. Her goal was got the qualifications to Rio, got personal best, great times that just made her work even harder. And in her own words, in Rio, out of the pool, she just put her head down and swam as fast as she could. In her tally after that, as fast as she could swim, 1 gold medal into the 100-meter freestyle, silver medal into the 100-meter butterfly, 1 bronze in the 4x100 freestyle, and another bronze in the 4x200-meter freestyle. What a first Olympic for Penny Oleksiak. After 2 weeks, she became the best swimmer ever out of Canada, and it's just an amazing performance.
For sure. That is the correct answer, of course, although I suspect that you have DeGrasse as your next one.
Yeah, my other one is DeGrasse with a 2 bronze and a silver with a performance that literally galvanized the country. I haven't felt that way since 1996 and seeing Donovan Bailey. I remember when I was when Bailey won, and I had the same feeling watching DeGrasse, even though he didn't get gold. Just because a guy called Bolt that got them. But outside of that, wow, what a performance by DeGrasse as well.
Yeah, that 200 meter, I don't know. A lot of people knew of Andre DeGrasse, but I'm not sure that the whole country was completely aware of him until after he medaled in the 100. But that 200 meter final was the closest it's felt in this country to 1996 in the 100 meter final since then. People stopped. I mean, people went into bars. They watched that. It was on everywhere. It was very much a collective moment.
I was working that night, Duane, and for those 20 seconds, nobody was working. Nobody was doing anything else than watching the 4 TVs we had. That's all that happened. Nobody else was doing anything. Nobody was eating. Nobody was taking a sip of beer. Nobody was going for a smoke. Nobody was going to the bathroom. Babies were not getting fed. Things were not getting done in those 20 seconds in this country.
Fair enough. Yeah. And it's exciting to think about the possibilities in 4 years' time with Andre DeGrasse as well. If Bolt is, in fact, out of the picture at that point, it's kind of, sad that if someone leave the picture for him to win a gold medal. Bolt, as we said off the top, is such a special athlete.
We'll see. He has one more shot of beating him. Otherwise, he's just a guy who took over for Bolt. If he wants to be the guy who beats Bolt and then takes over, he's got to beat him in London 2017.
Yeah, it's going to be a big ask, but we'll see. A lot can happen a year. Actually, I have a different gold medal because I anticipated that you would have those. So I wanted to draw attention to Rosie and her repeat, because it is very, very difficult to repeat. And she had tons of issues leading into the Olympics. She had a concussion, which didn't allow her to train for several months. Can you imagine having a concussion in that sport, in trampoline?
Up and down, the way your brain just moves around all the time, and the swelling of the brain when the concussion happens. Yeah, I can imagine the difficulty of just getting back into trampoline shape.
Exactly. And also she had to carry a lot of the media load for the entire Olympic team in the couple years leading into Rio. She was, because she's a very kind of like, clean cut, peppy sort of girl next door, that she gets a lot of attention. Everyone likes to have Rosie. They want to talk to her, and she always gives her time, and she always does the interviews, and she always is, happy and never seems like it's a burden to her. And she's just holds herself, and that to me contributes to the fact that how impressive it was that she was able to repeat. So she is my gold medal. It was one of my more entertaining, one of the moments of the games that I jumped off the couch, because I in the last 4 years, like many Canadians, I've grown to really appreciate her as an athlete, as a Canadian, and I want her very badly to win that gold medal again, and she did. And we'll see what she can do in 4 years' time. I suspect she'll be back for another one, because she's not very old really yet in that world. A lot of the women that compete in trampoline are in their 30s, and she's still in her 20s. So lots of time left there, and just a very good, solid, professional performance by a woman that has held herself up very solidly and represent the country so well, and deserves all the praise that we can give her.
No, absolutely. I have to agree with you there. And it's interesting too, because the way she won it, there was not controversy, but the Chinese who finished second got a great run, but her last jump wasn't necessarily perfect. She was traveling a lot, and it is a subjective sport, and Rosie won at the end. But the fact that she like went through adversity and not necessarily like a perfect run, but she still eked out the win, it gives maybe a little bit more value to that goal than it already had.
Shall we move to the world?
We should open ourselves to the world, Dwayne.
All right. The world wood, bronze, silver, gold, all start. My wood medal, Kevin, goes to the evil stepsisters or stepbrothers, step siblings, I guess is what I'm trying to say, of American tabloid personalities, Lackey and Solo, who dominated the headlines outside of the Olympic Games. That they derailed a lot of conversations with what they were doing there, and it was so annoying that that's what anyone was talking about when all I wanted to do was focus on the athletes. I hate those stories, but
yes. Don't you think that balaclava and that mosquito's net just seemed a little silly with hindsight now?
oh, well, Hope, yeah. I mean, she doesn't really also always have the best insight into what she's doing and how it's going to impact people for sure. And certainly, if you want to listen to us talk about Hope Solo, like, and listen to songs. It's not so much about those two athletes though. It's just about how stories like that take over and they creep into the mainstream, and it sort of takes away from the accomplishments is what the Olympics should be
when you
about.
have a general channel covering the games, you do not necessarily always have a sporting aspect to your coverage.
Precisely. All right. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Do you want to talk about the wood?
My wood is the crowds, Dwayne. The lack of crowds. And in the words of Derek Drouin and Damien Warner, when they were on Tim and Sid after the Olympics, they mentioned that the media itself and a lot of scare and the lead up to the games, that people were scared to go to Rio, affected the crowds. Not a lot of crowds, not as much as international travelers as other games, not as much involvement from the Brazilian people as we have seen from other games as well, because of the controversy surrounding the game. It goes deep into the mindset of Rio inhabitants, where the World Cup, the Olympic Games, and the lack of infrastructures for their health and safety and politically what's going on. So that did affect the Rio, and it's a shame because you had great sporting moment happens. And just go back to the rugby tournament, which I'll talk about in a second. The rugby tournament itself was missing a lot of crowds, and it's a shame because you had amazing moments and just not enough people watching it live to give it that special aspect that usually an Olympic Games have.
Yeah, big juxtaposition to London too, where every venue was sold out and it was always hopping, and it was just it sort of took over that city, and the British people really embraced it. I'm reluctant to blame the Brazilian people because not all of them have the money to buy those tickets, but
the travelers usually there's a lot more. There's a lot of people going into those games, and because of the scare, Zika, Rio, crime, there was some, but majority, I think, we'll see what the fallout is. But it went correctly in majority, so it's a shame that there's not much travelers. I went to Rio this time around.
That all speaks to what we spoke about already with Milos and that conversation and sort of the scare, as you said. And it was unfortunate, as you said, because this is the Olympics and these people are competing. Many of those athletes will never be in another games, right? So it's a bit of a shame that they didn't get to compete in front of a full house. But certainly all those factors that we mentioned are a big part of that. All right, let's move to my bronze medal. My bronze medal is Almaz Ayana, the 10,000 meter world record holder, won the gold medal, ran a long distance race in a way that I've never seen anyone run a long distance race in the Olympics before. She just took it.
I'll go, and you guys follow. I'm just going to go. You guys just try to follow me.
Yeah, and it's not really how that works normally. It's normally a situation where the races are very cagey, very tactical, and this just wasn't the case, as I said. And the time she ran was outrageous, just absolutely outrageous. And it just was one of those moments that kind of caught me. It was first day of track and field too, so it kind of caught you off guard. World records, we haven't seen world records fall routinely in track and field in a while, so it was kind of nice to see them fall again, although we always have suspicions, but nonetheless, we'll leave that alone for now. Just a great run and a brave run, which I really like to see.
Oh, no, I have to agree with you there. My bronze medal is the Rugby 7 competition as a whole. It brought a new dynamic, new type of sport to the Olympics that was amazing to watch. Gave Fiji finally a medal after years and years of trying. They finally got a sport that they're good at the Olympics. They medaled in there. The women, the men, the competition as a whole was great to watch. And I am glad that it was involved in the Olympics this time around. Hopefully, it stays in it for a long time because it was missed those type of sport, and that sport was impressive. It's a different type of athlete that plays rugby and the other sports, and they're finally represented at the Olympics.
Well, yeah, you nailed it, and it's popular in a different in the part of the world that doesn't necessarily win a lot of medals. So I do think that that's valuable. We talked a lot about the Rugby 7 tournament in the first week of the games. It was really dominating a lot of the narrative here, at least. And part of that was because of Canada's success, and that was fun too on the women's side. But certainly the Fiji situation, and then finally getting a medal for the first time in 50 years, we added to it, and it just was a lot of fun, and I think it really added a lot of value to the games. And I certainly hope that it will stay for some time to come, Kevin.
Exactly, that's my hope, and we'll have it next Olympics, so we'll get there.
All right, my silver is Rafael Silva, the Brazilian judo gold medalist. Brazil's first gold medal of the games. A rowdy crowd. She was from Rio. She grew up there in the slums, and just it was one of those stories that just writes itself. It's a movie of the week, for God's sakes. But it was just kind of inspiring to watch, and it's always fun to watch the home team succeed. And Brazil didn't actually do as well as most home teams do in this Olympics, and that's probably has to do with finance and all that sort of stuff. But they did have some really brilliant moments at times, and certainly Silva's gold medal started it all, and was just a very inspiring moment in those games. It was I'm glad I watched it live. It's one of those ones I'll remember for years to come, Kevin.
My silver medal, Duane, goes to Mo Farah. What a performance! 5,000 meter, 10,000 meter. The last kick he had when he won the 5,000 meter, Duane, in Rio was impressive. Just nobody could keep up. They were trying and they crashed at the line as fast as he was running. It was impressive to watch, and he repeated the 5,000, 10,000. It's two distances that are not necessarily equivalent to success in both. Your 5,000 runners are not necessarily great 10,000 runners. It's double, literally, the effort. So for Mo Farah to repeat his London exploits in Rio in the fashion he did, especially in the 5,000, 10,000 was a little closer, but the kick he had in the final 100 meter of the 5,000 was, well, impressive.
Obviously, that repeated his London performance and was an inspiration there for sure. And it's just such a popular athlete too, and a lot of we talk about pressure with Rosie and the pressures of repeating. Same thing there, right? Probably on a bigger scale, even because obviously he's a bigger country. In an event that's more popular. So certainly a lot of credit should go there, and a great performance there. A lot of long distance runners in our medals, Kevin.
Well, it just tells you that type of effort actually impressed us, and the fact that we watched the whole Olympics, we actually probably watched those races as a whole, so it left a bigger imprint on us than usually. But those efforts of, it's good to be the fastest man ever, like it's well and good, but to be the guy who can run the longest, that's something else as well. It's almost more impressive to me because I do cycling. I more maybe conducive to be an endurance athlete. I'm not saying I'm an athlete. I'm closer to an endurance athlete than a sprint athlete. So I can understand the sacrifices and the effort made day in, day out to achieve those type of results.
Fair enough. All right, let's move to the big one, the gold medal. And I'll start as I have been for the entire world cycle. So I'll start here. My gold medal is going to go to the Brazilian men's beach volleyball
I knew you were
team.
going there. I knew.
Yeah.
Impressive, that reaction from the crowd on Copacabana Beach that day. Wow.
Yeah, like I said, it's like the most iconic place in Rio. A Brazilian team wins it. It was 1:20 in the morning. Those people in the crowd had probably been drinking all day. Let's not kid ourselves too, which added to the rowdiness of it. But it was just a very exciting. You talked about the lack of crowds, and that certainly was an issue throughout the games, but there wasn't a lack of crowd that night. The locals were there. They were into it. Volleyball is a sport that's very popular in Brazil. This was a team that was expected to win and performed. Alisson and Bruno were the players' names. It was just so much fun. I remember that, watching that. I actually watched it on my phone and just being like, wow, this is just what the Olympics are about in all of its essence, even though I don't have a team in it, but I'm completely compelled. I'm completely gripped by it. a very exciting event. And as I said, it was something that the volleyball mattered to Brazil. There were probably 3 gold medals that they wanted the most, which would have been beach volleyball, and soccer and men's soccer, and they got them. So that I said a minute ago that Brazil didn't maybe have the best host Olympics that, compared to other, certainly got some big goals that they would have mattered a great deal for them. And this was one of them, and one of them that just had a lot of atmosphere around it.
My gold medal goes to an athlete that we've seen all across those games, not just during his 2-day event. We've seen him when his wife competed. Yes, he's American, but he was proudly wearing that Canada hat to support his wife. We've seen him in commercials with Visa, with his wife trying to outdo his wife and order those damn tablets on time, and he couldn't do it. But that athlete, what he did in those games, winning the decathlon. I'm talking about Ashton Eaton. What a likable character, what a likable athlete. Just says the right thing, does the right thing. He competes trying to outdo himself on the track, on the field. He's trying to do his best with great performances. We've seen him do a great javelin throw, a great 1500 meter, which is just atrocious, Duane. If you imagine 2 days of competition, 12 hours, and you finish with the hardest event of the so hard, so cruel to those athletes. But Ashton Eaton, my gold medal, I was impressed. And this year, I have to say, I fell in love with the decathlon. Those 2 days of the men and the 2 days of the women the week prior, I've literally watched every single event, every single athlete. The gamesmanship or sportsmanship depends on who the athlete is, to what you're going to do, especially when it comes to the high jump, to the long jump. It's just fascinating, and it's such a hard event to predict, hard event to be good at. It's the most fittest persons on earth. I just fell in love with decathlon and Ashton Eaton.
Yeah, well, and Eaton's very impressive in the way he performs in that. They actually was a graph that was put out, I think, in the New York Times. Chance to gain points, but chance, the point system isn't completely equal for all those events. Basically, over the years, that sort of weighed itself out. He's perfect. He's a perfect decathlete. He is absolutely the best at the events that get him the most points, and a very difficult athlete to beat in that. And certainly, look, he was one of the people that was probably the most slam dunk favorite going in, and he performed. And that we don't give enough credit to sometimes, the slam dunk favorites to actually do what they're supposed to do, because that's a lot harder than we think it is, especially on a stage like the Olympics. So it's fitting that our final gold medal will be for the event that is generally perceived to crown the greatest athlete in the world, because that's what the Olympics are all about. So, Kevin,
yep,
that is Rio.
Yep, we've put a bow on the 2016 Rio Olympic Summer Games, Duane.
Yeah, I don't know what more to say here now. So we talked a lot. I hope you enjoyed the coverage. We'll be back probably bi-weekly for most of the in-between event stuff. We'll get some events out there. We'll let you know when it's happening. But certainly a lot of fun, and I look forward to continuing the show. It's one of my favorite shows that I do. If you haven't listened to us before the games, we cover a lot of issues. We talk about bids, like where events are going, things like that. Occasionally we have a little bit of fun. So I hope you'll come along for the journey and the lead up to Pyeongchang. And until that time, as always, Kevin,
on your podium, folks. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
All right.
Talk to you in the morning.
All right.
Do we have guest something tomorrow?
I don't yet, but I'll do that, and then this afternoon I'll find one.
Cool. All right.
Bye.